Hello, happy Sunday. Pretty hot today here, coming into towards the end of summer. I guess some people would say it's already autumn. It still feels a bit like late summer. Looking at Beastie Boys album, 1998, Hello Nasty. This came out when I was about 17, and it was in the last year of high school, and I have a lot of memories of this connected to a lot of things that happened in that last year of high school. It's weird how a couple of months of your life kind of have such connection to different parts of your life as you get older and seem to hold certain importance in ways that you couldn't really see at the time. So these kind of the music you listen to and some of those periods holds a more important place in your memory and kind of attacks the old nostalgia center of the brain pretty strongly sometimes when you listen to it. I bought this at the time, 1998, and whatever, like I always say, it's either been lost, sold, damaged, given away, whatever. But I didn't have it. But I rebought it again late last year on a Facebook CD swap page that I'm on, or swap, sell, trade, whatever you want to call it. And so I got this, I think it was for $5 with a couple of other things. It was like $6 for shipping, and I think it was like 3 or 4 CDs. See there the cover art. It's the 3 guys, Ad Rock, MCA, and Mike D, in a sardine tin together. Be careful here because the jewel case holder is not in perfect condition. It's a little bit broken. I remember actually the guy who sold this claimed all the cases were in perfect condition, which they weren't, but anyway, not the end of the world. So this was put out on Grand Royal, which I think was their imprint on Capitol. Grand Royal doesn't exist anymore, so through Grand Royal they put out a few acts through Grand Royal. The one that I remembered was Luscious Jackson, because I think Kate, what's her name, Schellenbach, she played with them in the early days when they were like more of a hardcore punk band in the early 80s. I think she played with them, and then she went on to form Luscious Jackson, and I think they released their album on Grand Royal. From memory, let's see, there we go, just popped out. So I think it's a pretty great album, Hello Nasty. And a lot of that is to do, like, again, because of the time it was released and the time in my life and how that holds a certain importance and blah, 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 which I just said. But I think it stands, it stood the test of time. So we've got kind of a space motif, sci-fi, I don't know what period you'd call that kind of. It's kind of like 60s illustrations that you'd see like in a sci-fi textbook or a comic or something like that. There's the robot that's on the intergalactic video. Have you ever seen that? There's the lyrics written in very small font from end to end. I remember reading through those back in the time. And the thank yous and general acknowledgements and so on and so forth. So this album was produced by them and Mario Caldato. Was it Caldato Jr.? Who also he produced a number of their works. He was involved in certainly on Ill Communication. And it was also the first album where they worked together with Mixmaster Mike. So prior to this, they had been working with DJ Hurricane. And actually last year I was trying to find on the internet some information as to why they stopped working with Hurricane, because I thought he was pretty good DJ, and he'd also sometimes add to vocals. There's actually a really good live performance that they did on Arsenio Hall's show, where they did What You Want live. So that was Check Your Head. So Hurricane was with him in Check Your Head period too. So they'll do a live performance of What You Want on Arsenio Hall's show in I guess that would be 1991, 92. And Hurricane was DJing in the background, and then he came down from the decks and did a verse, rapped a verse. And then I also remember at the end of that performance, Cypress Hill came out. Be Real and Send Dog from Cypress Hill came out and did some verses as well. It's a pretty amazing performance. It's on YouTube. And Ad Rock in particular is just hyped up beyond all recognition. He's just like really into it. But it's an awesome performance. But anyway, Hurricane left. From what I could gather, he wanted to kind of make his own name and not just be the Beastie Boys DJ. He wanted to be recognized for his own stuff, and maybe he wasn't being compensated as well as he would have liked. For whatever reason, they parted ways and they started working with Mixmaster Mike. Oops. And he's featured on this album, number of tracks, specifically the 3 MCs and 1 DJ song, which is kind of references him specifically, and he's, I think, there's like a kind of a voice message from a recording that he left on one of their phones, and he's on that as well. But anyway, I think it's a I use this term a lot, but solid, as in there isn't a lot of filler. It's a pretty great album from end to end. First 2 songs are great openers. The first song in particular, Super Disco Breaking, is a perfect way to start the album. It starts off with the sound of a subway train arriving, and then it goes into the breakbeat, and then The Move is also a great song. Remote Control is a little bit different. That's almost like a I really hate describing music sometimes. It sounds like it's performed by a band. It's not just sampled, put together with samples like a lot of their stuff is. It sounds like they're performing it as a band, as they often do. There's kind of like a very recognizable bass line, which might actually be sampled. So, what do I know? Song for a Man's definitely different. That's like a almost like a lounge song. I think it's Ad Rock singing, and it's singing, it's not rapping, and it's about misogyny of men's attitudes towards women. But I really like that song, I remember at the time, and I still like it. Just a Test, Body Moving, just kind of typical Beastie Boys songs. Intergalactic was the first single, was probably the biggest song on the album. Sneaking Out of the Hospital is an instrumental. That's a great song. Putting Shame in Your Game, I remember at the time, back in 1998, I think that was my favorite song. And there's one particular verse, and the sample they use in the background on the verse, you're caught in a rattle. No, was it? Trying to recall lines of music without the music playing is really hard. But it goes, selfish ways just can't maintain. These are the breaks, but you try to come fake. It's whatever. In the background, there's this kind of like, it's almost like a flute sample. It's hard to describe. It's impossible to describe, basically, for me. But if you listen to that song, you might be able to pick out the part I'm talking about. Putting Shame in Your Game. Other songs that I really like, Song for Junior, which again is another instrumental. That Negotiation Limerick File. Where's that Grasshopper one? Which one is that? Maybe I'm getting mixed up with some of them. Maybe, yeah, okay, anyway. The last song, Instant Death, again, that's just Ad Rock singing over the top of it, like a kind of a keyboard piano, very kind of softly. Apparently it's about his mate who committed suicide. and about his mum, who had died a little bit before this album was released, I think, or sometime during the 90s. And he's just singing about them. What do you say? What do you do when your man kills himself? What does he say about his mum? I want to see my mum to show her that I made it, or that I can, she can be proud of me. And then this last line is, he wants to die an instant death. Maybe he means that literally, as in when it's his time to go, he doesn't want it to drag on. I think most people feel that way, don't they? Everyone wants to have at least a relatively long life, and then when it's time to go, make it quick. But yeah, it's a great album. It's if you put it up with the rest of the albums, so we got License to Ill. License to Ill, you can't help but sometimes listen to that as a bit of a novelty record. It's good. Some people would say it's great, but to me it has this the feel of kind of shtick. It feels like a bit of a joke almost, and from what they've said, they might agree with that. Paul's Boutique is kind of considered to be their classic, as in it was very influential and very innovative for the time. Their use of sampling and the samples they used, and that in general. Paul's Boutique is the one that's got Barrel of a Gun. That's a great song. It uses a cool guitar riff. Then they went to Check Your Head, which is where Check Your Head is quite heavy on the instrumental, like as in, not the instrumentals, but as in their live instrumentation, using like the guitar, bass, and drums themselves, as opposed to just sampling. And it's a great album as well. That's got some good songs on it. Gratitude, What You Want, with Jimmy James. Then Ill Communication, which I'd say Ill Communication and Hello Nasty are my two favorite albums. Then after Hello Nasty, they went to the Five Boroughs, which I owned. Don't own it at the moment. I've sold it, but I would look to get it again eventually. Didn't listen to that as much. It didn't have as much of an effect on me as the previous ones. And then I think it was just went to their last album after that. Did they do anything between that and Hot Sauce Committee? Can't actually remember. Don't have anything here in front of me to reference, as they sometimes do. I actually saw them when they were touring this album. So they were supposed to come to it's quite low, isn't it? To the Big Day Out Music Festival in '99, but they ended up cancelling. I can't remember why. But they ended up coming later that year. They did a concert of their own, and I was going through a period in my life where I didn't have a lot of money. I remember I didn't have a job. It was just when I first finished high school, and I was going through a transitionary period of coming to terms with the change of life of not being at school anymore and not really knowing what I was going to do, and I was a bit all over the place. But anyway, they played at the North Shore Event Centre and we couldn't go, but my friend at the time, they were gymnasts, like they did gymnastics, like flipping and the horse and the parallel bars and that kind of stuff. And the gymnastics club was attached to the event center where the concert was held, so they had access to the gymnastics center, and from the gymnastics center you could go up a series of kind of access ways to this top part of the, whatever you call it, event center. And it was like a little I don't know what you call it. Basically there was this opening that you could look down to and see the whole, like you're right up at the roof, like not just a little bit high, but right at the top of this venue, and you could see the whole crowd and the band playing. So I didn't get to see the whole concert, but for a good 5 or 6 songs I stood up there. Then from what I remember, there were some other people there who got in who shouldn't have been, and they kind of called attention, like there was too many people, and so security saw what was happening, and they came up and basically said, get out or you're going to get kicked out or something like that. But I remember I got to see, yeah, because if it wasn't for that, I'd never have seen them. It didn't cost any money. So I can't remember a huge amount of it. I remember our MCA was wearing a hat, and he had a bass. He was actually playing the bass, at least for the songs that I was from. So I always liked MCA best, Adam Yauch. I liked his voice. The other two were a little bit sometimes high pitched for my liking, which yeah, I'm not saying they're bad. Like Ad Rock is pretty great, and Mike D's not bad either. But I don't know. I always in the later albums I kind of felt more, what's the word? Connection, or I could relate to MCA's verses more than the others. He seemed a lot more introspective, and like, you know, he got into like Buddhism, and he converted to Buddhism, and he was interested in like social issues, and they all were as time went on, but him in particular. And there were some of like things that in particular he said that as a young man they kind of stuck with me, and he always seemed like a cool guy. Like I said, something like they were all kind of jokey, weren't they? Like jokesters. But yeah, I don't know, something about him kind of stood out. And so when he died in 2012, you know, when celebrities die and people were like, you don't know how much it affects people, like fans. Like some people were saying like they, you know, some of the stuff they write on social media, like act as though it's like a member of their family has died. But, you know, I guess you can't really judge how someone reacts or feels about a death of someone who they've never met. But in some cases, their art has had a big and important influence on their life. When he died, that was like, there's some people who died who I'm a big fan of, but it doesn't really affect you, you know. You're like, oh, that's a shame. Or I'd say MCA, I was particularly sad. I wasn't crying or any, I'm not saying to that extent. It wasn't like grief or anything, but it was, I don't know, I felt bad for him. I felt bad for his family. He had like a little girl, like I think she was like 10 or 12 at the time when he passed away. And he just seemed like such a cool guy that, I don't know, it just bummed me out. I remember I was lying in bed. I used to live in an apartment over in the city, and I remember reading, and I was like really deflating, I guess is the way. It wasn't a shock because we knew he was sick. He had been too sick to attend the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction, which was a few months or a few weeks before that. So obviously everyone knew he wasn't doing well, but regardless, still young. I think he was younger than, I think it was like 49 or something, 48. So yeah, not to end this on a somber tone or a down note, but yeah, it is a shame. And they haven't really done anything since, which is, you know, I've talked about that before. Thank God. You know, I don't, when a main member of a band dies, it just feels like the ultimate respect is to end it. Of course, that doesn't mean never releasing anything again, like release old works and box sets, and they've done books. They did that Beastie Boys book, and they did that. I downloaded the audio book of it, which was actually quite good, and they did a photo book of it as well. And I think they've done some deluxe editions of different things. I think they released a deluxe edition of To the Five Boroughs a couple of years ago. Of course, that's all part of cataloging and recognizing the legacy of a band. No problem with that. But actually performing like with a hologram or some stand-in or something, no, please don't. Which, you know, for example, that moment Pantera are doing with Phil, which I understand if you have the vocalist, that is a big part of the band. I get that. He's still alive. But the Abbott brothers, it was their band. And it just seems, I don't know, especially, yeah, without getting into a whole side issue of this, because I don't even really like Pantera. I never really have liked Pantera. They've got a few songs that I like, but or you know, the bullshit that happened between like Phil Anselmo was, it sounded like a complete fucking dickhead in the years leading up to them breaking up and to Dimebag getting killed. And then all the, you know, I'm not saying you can't, you know, have remorse and all that kind of stuff after someone dies. I would think that's the right thing, but the way he tries to kind of, some of the things he says now, even apart from all the fucking white power bullshit, some of the things he says about Dimebag and Vinnie Paul, and you think that doesn't sound particularly authentic or real. And just playing, yeah, just, I don't know. He had his own solo, or, you know, I think it was Phil Anselmo on the Illegals. He had that outfit and a few other, and then of course Down and Superjoint Ritual and things like that. He's got lots of forums and venues in which he can play Pantera songs. So it seems like a bit of a money grab. That when they say, "Oh, it's for the legacy of we want to honor the legacy of Dimebag and Vinnie Paul," it's like, fuck off. Really, come on, it's a money grab. There's Dimebag Darrell and Vinnie Paul are both hugely respected in the heavy metal community. It's not as though these concerts are going to suddenly give some extra bonus respect that have been missing, you know. It just, I don't know, it cheapens the art. It cheapens what they have done. It cheapens the legacy. Fucking Vinnie Paul, to his dying day, wanted nothing to do with Phil, and understandably so. Anyway, way off topic here. I could see the Beastie Boys aren't the kind of band that would do that. In saying that, what didn't they got that line about it was an MCA line. He was saying it was in that song Alive. No, maybe it was the one I was talking about putting shame in your game. I might sneak around and I might be a fad, but I won't sell my song for no TV ad. As in the idea that he would never want to license their music for any kind of TV show or movie, but they did license Sabotage for that. Whoever did that first Star Trek movie, was it Josh or whatever? I don't know his name. And that was after MCA had passed away, and I don't know how he would have felt about that. But I might be completely wrong. So anyway, sorry, a bit of a ramble there, but there's, I guess that's kind of the point of these videos at the end of the day. It's a great album, one of their best in my opinion, although their whole catalogue's pretty great. I don't think they've got many, they don't have a terrible spot. I think, like I said, License to Ill is probably the weakest, but even that, still got some good stuff on it. Beastie Boys, thanks for watching.